It's been reported that 70% of people feel like an imposter at some point in their lives. It might be worth just really clarifying what imposter syndrome means and why I feel like actually this is a superpower. This is the thing that has allowed me to succeed in my life. Imposter syndrome is that feeling that you've only succeeded due to luck, or that you don't belong and you shouldn't really be where you are. So how can I tell you that feeling like this is a good thing? Well, it shows that we're trying something new, that you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and that's where the growth happens. But there's a catch. Feeling like an imposter can become debilitating. It can make you feel like you can't do the thing. I'm gonna start by telling you a story. I grew up in a town in East Yorkshire on a council estate. I went to a normal school that was, to be honest, a bit roughly. I spent most of my childhood trying to avoid fights. I wanted to escape. At 18, naively applied to be an army officer. You go to this selection place, instantly felt like I didn't belong. It felt like everybody had a different voice to me. Everyone spoke in a different accent, but I always felt a little bit from day one like I was an outsider, felt like an imposter. One of the colonels asked me, "So, what school did you go to?" And I answered, and he had no idea where it was. He'd never heard of it. And I think he was expecting me to say one of the esteemed, privileged schools in the country. Even though I felt like an imposter, at 18 I was able to push through that and still show them enough to be selected. But it didn't stop there, this feeling of being an imposter. Once I was selected and told, "Yeah, we think you're good enough," didn't just drop it. I then went to Sandhurst, which is where they train all the officers, and on the kit list it said you need a sports jacket. I just assumed that meant like an Adidas tracksuit jacket. So I turned up with an Adidas tracksuit jacket in my bag. It turns out I had no idea that a sports jacket meant a tweed woolen jacket, which gentlemen wear to the polo and to events and to regattas and to go drinking on the King's Road in London, which I had no idea. A whole different world to me. It was only in 1871 that they stopped making people pay to become officers. You had to pay if you wanted to be an officer in certain regiments. Some of those historical traits still remain, but I was selected. Someone, a kid from a council estate, rough background, somehow ended up becoming an officer. What did I learn from this? That imposter syndrome can affect anyone. I didn't want to feel like an outsider. I was an imposter in my own head, in my body, but it turns out I shouldn't have been. Looking back now, none of the class stuff really matters. I had two choices to really decide what to do. I could have, one, tried to change the way I was and really become what I thought the organisation wanted from me. Or option two was to double down on being me. And if I'm going to be honest, I started to go and become option one. I started to change my behaviour. I started to change how I talk. I wore the tweed jacket. I'd wear chinos. We should really aim to double down on what is you, what is unique to you. It's only really now that I'm starting to do it fully. When I started making YouTube videos, I did it for fun. I did it to record my travels around the world. I've got loads of videos about travelling by bicycle after I left the army, and I felt like it was just a bit of fun and it was something that I didn't take really too seriously. But where I now feel imposter syndrome is doing videos like this, talking about some of the lessons I've learned from my 12 years of being an army officer, 18 months of riding my bike around the world, and the last 3 years I've worked in business. And I've got loads of lessons that I could help other people with. But I still feel that imposter syndrome. I still feel like I don't really belong on camera talking to strangers. The reason I think imposter syndrome is a superpower is the opposite. It means you don't have any self-awareness. You can be arrogant and not really care what anyone thinks about you. I think the most extreme examples we can see in politics. If you look at some of our political leaders, they display the most arrogance and the most confidence for sometimes people that are inept at what they do. You having imposter syndrome is a good thing. It means you care, it means you've got awareness, and you're worried about what people think and what you think about yourself. And here's some of the ways I've found through my life that really works for me to help reduce imposter syndrome, to use it for greatness. So I'm going to break this down into two categories. You've got things you can do by yourself and things you can do as a collective. And I'm going to start with things you can do alone right now to help reduce imposter syndrome. And step one is self-talk. If you want to control your thoughts, positive self-talk is the place to start. It takes 3 positive thoughts to counter 1 negative thought, and this is so evident in social media. If I read 1 negative comment, it will linger. Telling yourself things that are based in truth. So you can't talk to yourself and just say things like, I am the greatest. It doesn't work. You've got to tell yourself things that are specific and real. Your mind won't believe. You can't blag your own mind. You've got to talk the truth to yourself. So talk to yourself in a positive way. Base it in reality. This is what I've done. This is what I'm going to do. And keep it like that. Point 2 is to collect positive feedback. Now, it doesn't mean go around asking for compliments, but when you do receive it, collect it. You will get feedback in all walks of life, and some of it may be negative, but remember the positive stuff. If you get a letter from somebody that says something nice, keep it. Take a photograph of it if you want to, but really collect those positive bits of feedback and really sit on it and think, oh yeah, that is what I am. Point 3 is to separate your feelings from facts. That feeling of imposter syndrome, I'm not good enough, I don't belong here, isn't a fact. The fact is usually you are where you are for a purpose. If you've done really well at school or in your grades, most likely you deserve to be in this great university. If you've done really well in your job and you've performed well, you probably deserve to be there. Not probably, you definitely deserve to be there. Take the facts and just put to one side anything that's just your opinion. Your opinion in this stage actually doesn't matter. And 4, let go of trying to be perfect. Be happy with an 80% solution. If you get 80% of the way there, it takes the same amount of time to get that extra 20%. And nothing's ever going to be perfect. It's human nature to not be perfect. So I'm going to make this video here. There's going to be some things that aren't perfect with this video, but that's okay. The next one's going to be a little bit better. Let go of perfection, start making, start doing, and get it out into the world. Now moving on to collective, things that you can do with people as opposed to by yourself. And the first one, and it's something that I've done myself, which I found extremely beneficial, is to talk to people. Now, this can be a therapist, something I've done myself, and I've had so much benefits from speaking to somebody externally, a mentor, a very close friend, about how you're feeling. And honestly, it will make you feel a lot better, just getting those words out and just vocalizing them. The second point is to share your failures. Now, I failed loads and loads of times. But what we count as a failure can very often hold us, and it's usually the shame of a failure that keeps us trapped. I failed to cycle from Alaska to Argentina. I failed massively. I only made it down to America, not even halfway really. I'm okay with that failure. Failure would have been not trying. So share your failures with the world. Don't hold them as shame, and don't feel shame about failing. And point 3, and this is something we all need to do more of, is to celebrate our successes. So in my last role, I was again selling software, gaming software for a gaming technology company, and I made a successful deal. Sold this software for hundreds of thousands of pounds, and it was the biggest thing I've ever done as far as professionally, and all I could think about was not celebrating it. I didn't want to get arrogant, I didn't want to be over the top, I didn't want to get ahead of myself, and I was like, okay, what's next? And by not celebrating it, it almost takes away what's the point of doing it. And this is a lesson for myself as well as for anybody else. Celebrate your successes, no matter how small or how big, in that case for me, they are. If you have a goal of going to the gym 3 times a week and you go 3 times a week, celebrate that success. Share it with a friend, tell somebody. And it can be as little as just acknowledging it. That can be the celebration. You don't have to go and party and have a big event for it. You can do what feels right to you, but celebrate your successes. The goal here is to not ever feel like an imposter. The goal is to feel like an imposter and own it. Use it as your superpower to feel like you're being humble, like you feel like you're not arrogant, but don't become overburdened by it. Use it as a strength and move it into the next phase of what you're targeting. It means you're moving into an uncomfortable area. It means you're doing something new, that there's growth. Acknowledge that and appreciate it. Imposter syndrome isn't a bad thing if you don't let it become too much. If you've got any more points or thoughts that you've found has helped you, please put it in the comments. Share it with me. It'd be great to read through them, and I'll see you on the next one.